Welcome everyone. We've come together in this chapel today to give thanks for and to honour the good life of Lucy Mencherian. Lucy passed from this world some days ago in the Prince of Wales Hospital, and her death comes as a real sadness for you, her family and friends, and leaves the world the poorer that she's now no longer with you. So you have come here today to bid her farewell and, sharing the pain of loss, to be of comfort and support to family and to one another at this sad time. You will all miss her. She'll be especially missed, of course, by her own family, above all her husband Simon. So to you, Simon, and to her brother and sisters, do we extend deepest sympathy. Lucy's going does change things for you, does leave a gap in your lives and in the lives of other relatives and friends present. So may you all know peace and consolation in your hearts at this time. And for those who haven't met me yet, my name is Philip Grace, and I've been asked to share this solemn moment of farewell with you all this morning. In coming here today, you bring with you all the emotions of this moment. There is the sorrow as you mourn Lucy's passing, and the grief, knowing that she will not be with you any longer as once she was. There would be, though, a certain ease of spirit that her earthly pains and concerns of those last couple of years or so especially are now over, and that she is at peace, however you understand that to be. At the same time, too, there would also be feelings of thankfulness, aware of the qualities and attributes that made Lucy the loving and lovely woman she was. She always gave of her best. A devoted wife to Simon, she was a caring sister and aunt in her family of origin, and a good friend to many people. She was kind and thoughtful, with a good sense of humour. There was an elegance about Lucy, though she did live simply, although very well indeed, touching many lives, yours and others, in positive manner over the course of almost 8 decades in this world. And as a result of who she was and all she did, she was much loved in return by everyone whose paths she crossed. So, here today, as you reflect on her life and character, as you acknowledge all that she meant to you and did for you, there would indeed be feelings of gratitude that you were part of her life and that she shared an important part of yours. And in remembering, you also honour all that was fine and noble and loving and worthy in her life. You mark her accomplishments, even as you pay her your final formal respects. Let us just pause for a moment then to hold her lovingly, and for those who wish prayerfully, in our hearts. There is a saying that the life and death of each of us has its influence on others. Well, certainly Lucy's death now is having its effect on each of you in its finality and in the void that her going does create. But just as surely her life too had its effect on yourselves and others, for she's lived in such a way that she could be well described as a successful person in many respects, but certainly in the terms used by A.G. Stanley in this adapted verse, which Mark will now share with us.
It's a very fitting reading. That person is a success who has lived well, laughed often and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent adults and the love of children, who has filled her niche and accomplished her task, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who leaves this world better than she found it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best she had.
And because Lucy did live that way, giving of her best, it's important now in this moment of farewell to acknowledge the effect that her life did have and pay due tribute to her. And to do that personally now will be her niece Victoria. So Victoria, to you.
Lucy Mencherian was born on June 24, 1942, in Jerusalem. She was the fourth child of Lydia and Kevork Mencherian, first Martha, second Azad, third Betty, fourth Lucy, Araxi fifth, Sonia sixth, and Joseph number 7. It is no surprise that Lucy is fondly remembered for her love of family, having come from a large and loving family herself. Early family memories reveal Lucy's strength and determined nature. Jo and Betty recall an incident when there was an engagement party at the house. One of the attendees parked his tractor out the front and left with his date and 2 other couples to go to the movies. This was too tempting for the visiting cousins, who cranked up the tractor and took off with it. Lucy, holding Jo firmly in her arms, raced after it to try and stop it, only to have her foot run over by it, all the while holding Jo and never dropping him. This resulted in her having 3 months off school. Betty fondly recalls that when she started working, Lucy had no money. Being the elder sister, she would take her younger sister Lucy to the movies to watch a double feature. They would walk out of one movie and then walk straight into another. Betty also remembers Lucy's obsession with Indian culture, their music, movies and clothes, that she had a really big thing for wearing saris, and that her first job was working at an Indian exhibition close to where they lived in Amman. Whilst many of you may not have known about Lucy's early love of Indian culture, you all know she loved fashion. As Susie said, Lucy was always on point with fashion. Jo remembers her as a head turner, beautiful and elegant, inside and out. She unwittingly captured the attention of others in any room. In the early years, Betty would make herself dresses for special occasions, but before Betty had an opportunity to wear them, Lucy would help herself to them and take off wearing Betty's clothes. On September 25, 1962, Lucy came to Australia with Betty, Vahe and Martha. They moved into Willoughby to be close to other settled family members. The rest of the family left Jordan in 1963 and came to Australia for a better life. So then began a new chapter in Lucy's life. Lucy met Simon at an Armenian function in King's Cross. He said that they started a friendship. He invited her to his 21st birthday party. She and Betty attended the party. Betty recalls that she was getting tired towards the end and wanted to go home, but Lucy kept bargaining for another 20 minutes. Lucy stayed by Simon's side for the whole of the party, Betty recalls. This is easy for us to understand, as she stood by Simon's side for as long as we all can remember. The friendship progressed to dating and eventually marriage. When Simon asked Kevork for her hand, Kevork responded, "She's a beautiful girl, but she can't cook." This was not the case for long. She became one of the best cooks in the family. Before they got married, Lucy worked with my mum Emma at Telegene, cleaning office telephones in the city. Emma remembers working with a group of girls and meeting up with Lucy for lunch in Wynyard. Lucy would be eating sandwiches her mother carefully prepared for her. Later, Mum spent many an hour in the garden with Lucy, weeding and fertilising and tending to her fabulous green flowering orchids. She had a real green thumb. Whatever she touched, it grew beyond expectation. Orchids, liliums, and her favourite yellow roses were always in abundance in the house. In 1968, 53 years ago, Lucy and Simon got married at the Armenian church in Chatswood. Lucy and Simon, with Kay and Myrick, moved into 268 Rainbow Street, Coogee. For all the nieces and nephews, this place was, and still is, a treasure trove of golden childhood memories. Lucy had many jobs. She liked to chop and change, and she never got stuck in the one place. In the early days, she worked at Woolies, where she met her best friend Pam. She worked at Speedo, did office work for the Army, started a business partnership with Mary in the laundromat, and worked as a sales assistant at David Jones for 20 years. Family. Family was front and centre of Lucy's world. Although she didn't have children of her own, she was considered a second mum to some, and later grandmother of many, and godmother to more than the family can count. Special, Auntie Lucy had a knack of making everyone feel special. There was an energy that radiated from her when she was around family. Doreen remembers as a 10-year-old the excitement of Christmas holidays, a week at Auntie Lucy's house. She made her feel special, the way she spoke to her so lovingly. Peter shares the same sentiments and recalls the occasion when, as a young boy, he came home with his new earring, with Betty jokingly threatening to throw him out of home when Auntie Lucy quickly stepped into his defence, saying Peter could move in with her. She was a real-life fairy godmother. Christine recalls how passionately Lucy loved her family. When she arrived here in Australia, Auntie Lucy stepped up to play mum for her 18th birthday party, organising a big night out at Sydney Tattersalls. Susie recalls that Lucy was there at every milestone. She was the cool aunt. For Peter's Year 12 formal, she drove him and his girlfriend in her fancy car with a ribbon on the bonnet to resemble a hire car. George and Stephen remember Auntie Lucy's bubbly nature. In the early years, playing chasings with the kids and other fun games in Grandma's front yard. Later, playing bingo at New Year's Eve at Coogee. Lucy was the greatest hostess, especially at Christmas time. She would clean the house and prepare the main plates for weeks in advance. Her finest crockery was on display and the dining table was overflowing with the best Armenian food that our partners could never get enough of. Travelling, Auntie Lucy loved to travel, and she loved to travel with family. Jo fondly remembers their travel to Rome for Chris's wedding, their time at the iconic Trevi Fountain, and Sonia especially loved the time she spent with Lucy at Hawaii for Mark's wedding, sharing a room and a lifetime of memories. Walking the streets of Maui late at night, shopping and buying her favourite leather goods, handbags and shoes. Sonia and Lucy could not get enough of each other, their special time together that brought them closer than ever. Lucy and Simon also travelled around Cyprus in 2006 with Pauline at Christmas time to visit Antoine and his family, as well as visit Simon's childhood neighbourhood. Lucy was touched by his memories and really enjoyed the long walks along the coastline, the serenity of the water in Limassol. She really loved walking and the quality time together. The nieces and nephews grew up to become good friends with Lucy and Simon. Avo and his family regularly visited and went out together. This was a great joy for Lucy. She loved being with her family and having strong friendships with her kin. As a child, Ava recalls visiting the family in Coogee. They were the first ones to have a swimming pool. Later, Ava recalls Lucy and Kay's elegance. They were proper ladies. They could dress to the nines. Lucy was the matron of honour at his wedding and godparents to Greg. Later, they became close friends, going out together, talking about anything and everything. Anything and everything. This is a common feature amongst all the cousins, particularly Chris, whose main recollection is the ease with which she communicated with him and his cousins. She'd break away from the grown-ups and join the kids in the TV room, inquiring about school and talking about anything and everything. She treated the kids like adults and formed endearing friendships. Lydia, as a child, remembers this too. The fun times visiting Lucy, being greeted with a huge smile, big hugs, treats and playing in the pool all day long. The childhood tradition of playing in the pool was extended to Mark and his young family. Mark has recent memories of Lucy actually getting into the pool to play with his young daughters, namesake Lucy and Lilette. When Lydia moved to the eastern suburbs around 10 years ago, she would visit with Auntie Lucy weekly, catching up over coffee, surfing the internet on the iPad. Actually, Auntie Lucy was very adept with technology. She operated everything electrical and electronic in the household and was one of the first elders to have a mobile phone. Lucy used to love visiting Laura and her family on holidays at Terrigal. Every year, Simon and Lucy drove up for the day to enjoy dining out, and Laura and Lucy would shop for hours together. The family friendships ran deep. Her family were her best friends. As Mary said, she was not my sister-in-law, she was my sister. Lucy just loved to get out for a drive. In the latter years, Simon, Laura, Emma, Mary, and occasionally I would take a drive up to the North Shore to visit Toros in his all too inviting jewellery shop. After perusing all the shops and the best deals on them all, we'd have lunch together at the kebab shop next door. Carl would join us. We'd sit there together, squashed up, but happy, enjoying the sharing of kebabs, kibbeh, tabbouleh and hummus, our collective favourite food. This was followed up by a drive back through the Botanic Gardens at Lady Macquarie's chair for ice cream. Lucy loved the soft serve with chocolate on top. She loved to look out across at the Opera House and the harbour. She was always immaculately dressed, despite how sick she was. She was perfectly manicured and pedicured. She was, in short, the definition of elegance. Always thinking of others to the very end in hospital, she instructed Laura on where the Christmas presents were and how they should be wrapped. May she rest in peace.
Victoria, thank you for that very moving and such an appropriate tribute to your aunt, and I'm sure that what you have shared with us there will have found echo in the hearts and minds of everyone here today. I know you've all got your own treasured memories of Lucy, some of which Victoria shared with us there. But for the next few moments, could I just invite you to be with your special memories and in your hearts and minds to quietly pay her your own personal tributes. Again, the music is by Armic. It's the Tango Flamenco. It's no wonder Lucy enjoyed Armic's music so. It's like her, bright and full of life. But now, with your memories, with your feelings and understanding very much in your hearts and minds, we come to the moment where we must take our leave of this bright and lively woman, this Lucy. There's sadness in this parting, of course, for we will not be sharing her company here on earth again. But being the person that she was, she wouldn't want you to be too sad now on her account. In fact, she might even say something to you like these words of Helen Lowry Marshall, who wrote, "I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when day is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times, of laughing times, and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun of happy memories that I leave when life is done." Lucy's life in this world may now be done, but you do have the happy memories. And through those memories you know that she will always live on for you. She'll ever be part of your lives. We live in time and space, but there's more to life than just those things. While our bodies cease to exist, love does not die, and truth is stronger than the grave. Our affection for Lucy and the memory of the good she did unite us with her in a special way at this time. Time of farewell. A farewell that I'd ask you to take prayerfully now by joining together in the words that Jesus gave his disciples. So if you would please stand and we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And trusting now in God's care, and knowing that when the number of our days in this world comes to an end, that our bodies must return to whence they came, we commend with respect, with reverence, Lucy Mencherian to her God, and we commit her body to nature's keeping. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We see a life that has been well lived down through the years, but that life has come to a close. And so we say, Lucy, may you rest in peace. And so, family and friends, with our prayers and thoughts and the closing of the curtain, our service here comes to an end. On behalf of the immediate family, thank you all for coming, and thank you for having me share this special time with you all today. Celebration of Lucy's life is not yet over, though. You are all invited to join together at the Function Centre, which is the building across the Rose Garden here, and there you can share memories further over refreshments. Just be aware, though, in these terrible COVID times, to keep social distancing. Thank you all very much. A final piece of music, again by Armick, is appropriately named. It's Eternity. And with that, let us go in peace.